David, hi, good morning.
Hi, Andrew.
Got you your coffee.
Good to see you. Thank you very much.
I hope that's the one you wanted.
It's perfect, thank you.
2 shots.
Yes, the one, thank you. Thank you very
David, I wanted to catch up with you.
Sure.
Not so long ago, I met up with Vipul Chandna from Saracens.
Yeah.
And we were talking about enterprise architecture, specifically the impact that regulation, and I guess this tidal wave of regulation, is having on FS firms as they have to deal with all these changes to their systems, to their processes, and the like. The key insight that we picked up from that conversation, and he summarized it, was, Andrew, all that matters is data, data, and data. Well, David, you're one of the city's go-to guys in terms of data management. What I wanted to check with you was, well, what is data and why does it matter?
Well, I guess the main thing is data central to everything. It's just the key to every financial firm is their data. The quality of that data is most importantly. If it's good quality, it becomes an enabler. So they can use the data for compliance rules, for avoiding compliance breaches, for actually getting amalgamation of data together to get good holdings data, good positions, and obviously making sure they get corporate action data right correctly as well. It's just the centre of everything. It has to be the key to any firm to get the data as best quality as they can.
So data is sort of like the stock and trade. If
Indeed,
I were a retailer,
absolutely.
those would be my carrots and my peas and my apples and bananas.
Well, a bit more so. I think it actually becomes an asset. It's not just a sort of a cost that people just go out and buy. It's actually, you've got to do something with that data to make it an asset. So the better data you have, the more you can beat your competitor firms.
Okay, so let me just get this right, because truthfully, whenever I hear the word data, my eyes almost glaze over.
Most people are the same.
It sounds a bit like, data's a commodity. You're telling me, and I think the word you used was, data is strategic.
Well, it's an asset, yeah. It's certainly a strategic asset. I would say that, definitely. I mean, the key thing there is obviously a lot of firms are looking nowadays to acquire other firms. So if you have data that's in a good shape, you can acquire other firms more easily. You can bring other firms onto your systems. It's very much an enabler. So the strategic quality in terms of getting all your global holdings together. If you've got multiple offices, you might have regional offices or multiple locations. You want to get that data into one place and actually make good reports out of it. Also have regulations, be able to get that data to regulators in the right form and in timely manner. So yes, it does become very strategic.
Okay, so, and again, to the extent to which the analogy holds up, there are lots of themes in the broad IT space right now.
Sure.
There's this thing called cloud computing.
Oh, yeah.
It's come through in various iterations over the years. But there's also, I believe we're in this era called big data. So you hear of people like Google and others, and they're building these vast businesses on the back of.
Yeah,
so is that really where the sort of fight is in terms of FS firms getting data, or are you talking about managing data differently to that?
I'm not saying managing data in the more traditional form, but I think big data has a part to play. It's more about the technology that's brought in. There's been some technology enablers from big data that have allowed people to bring data in faster and not stage it multiple times. A lot of the old traditional data management solutions stage data in multiple places, which slows it up and it makes it prone to error. So I think big data has its play, but big data really is more about the firms that have millions and millions of rows of customer data, and every single tick that happens on a social media site, for example, has to be recorded because you can use it for analytics. In the normal sort of financial service area, that's not really a requirement right now. It might become in the future. Okay. Right now it's not really used in that context. I think social media is a different thing. I think people use that in a different context. But actually storing it as a big data hub is not necessary right now.
So what if I get data wrong? What's the cost to the enterprise?
Well, it can be huge, obviously. You'll see things in the paper virtually every day about compliance fines where you've failed to meet your compliance deadlines. Regulatory fines, of course, there's more regulation coming in day by day, so you've got to be able to get your data together to do that. I think it's very important that if you do that, you're going to end up with some kind of reputation risk as well, which is very important as well. So you want to avoid that at all costs. So anything where data is incomplete or is wrong, you could trade incorrectly, you could have all kinds of issues with your trading scenarios where you're missing things, and also compliance rules, which could be incomplete. So you can't even do a compliance check properly or do a client restriction properly.
So data sounds to me, the way that you've taken the conversation so far, data sounds very defensive. I have to manage my data better to avoid a regulatory or compliance issue. I have to manage my data better so that I'm not dealing with some sort of customer protection, customer privacy issue. Is there a role for data talking specifically now within financial services, to actually put FS firms on the front foot and to enable them to innovate and try and get ahead of the market.
Absolutely, yeah. I think that you're right, that's one aspect of it, is the defensive side. I think the other side is the investment edge. It's the fact that you can get better quality, therefore you can do better analytics, and you can produce better reports. You can make your entire client experience better, so people want to come to you rather than other people. There's multiple reasons why the quality data does drive that as well. And it's all about return on investment at the end of the day. So I guess, the more you can get money back from the cost you put in, the better it is for the firm.
Putting together a business case around data and elevating it up as a strategic driver. In my conversation with Vipul, he was saying it should be at the center of any business systems sort of architecture.
I agree.
The question then is, well, surely that then needs a business case of sorts if it's going to justify being a strategic lever.
Absolutely. I think that's the key point here, is that the business, the sort of cost-benefit analysis has to be done up front. You need to get sponsors on board, you need to get people who actually will spread the vision about that data and the architecture. And it is the building block for everything. So once you get the data right, you can then feed other systems correctly. And I think it's very important that you do that cost-benefit analysis. There's a worth to that in terms of both tangible and intangible benefits you can get. Tangible benefits might be obvious, where you can just reduce headcount, for example. Intangible might be the fact you've got a better data architecture generally, which you can then leverage to do other things. So you might want to do an eyeball solution without a good data solution. That becomes very tricky.
Okay, so we're covering a lot of ground here and covering a lot of it very quickly. Let's take a step back for a minute. So, if I were the CIO, the Chief Information Officer, CTO, Head of Business Systems, are you saying that when I look at my enterprise architecture, I need to have some sort of centralized view of how I manage data across the FS enterprise?
Ideally, yes.
Okay, yeah. So what does that look like? What does that mean?
It does depend. I mean, I guess it's really about how you build your solution out. It does depend on a lot of things, a lot of factors, and what you've got already. If you're in a greenfield site, that's very easy, because you can start with the best solutions, which are probably best of breed. You get something to bring the data in, transform it, write some rules to get better quality, put it into a data hub where that could then be reported on, so for performance, risk, those kind of things. And then you get something to query that data, a BI tool to get data out in various ways and do analytics on the data. So there's a whole sort of building blocks you put together to do that. And how you do that obviously depends on the order you do things in and what your current BAU is, because it's quite hard to bring those in when you've got a BAU process to run as well.
So, David, what you've described there is nirvana. And let's be real, 99.9% of all FS firms don't have the beauty of a clean piece of paper.
Absolutely.
And that sort of expression, you wouldn't normally start here, but this is, we are where we are.
Absolutely.
Kicks in very, very quickly. So for those enterprises that have legacy, that have made investments, that have, dare I say, spaghetti-like infrastructure. So is that a lost cause?
It's not a lost cause, but it's harder, but it always will be. That's just the nature of the asset management and the financial services industry, is that it does tend to be a spaghetti junction generally right across the board. So I think the ideal thing is that you do it piecemeal, you go for one piece at a time. I think in terms of getting the quality right is the first thing. If you've got quality data, the rest of it becomes easier.
So where would you start first then?
I would start with that. I would start with having some better quality software to create rules that can actually give you better quality data. And that can be on existing legacy systems.
Okay.
It's only when you get the quality right and you can measure that quality and start to get your tangible benefits in. So you're proving now you can run things faster, you can get speed to market faster, launch new funds, launch new instruments faster. Then you might look to replace other parts of the architecture. And that's a 2 to 3 year program, probably minimum for most firms. Once they've done that, obviously they might want to look at getting a better data hub or better query tools. But a lot of people start the wrong order. They start with the query first, and they're querying data that's already wrong. So they're not really getting the picture.
Well, that was one of the questions that I wanted to raise. I mean, if you almost did a sort of upfront as-is analysis as to what quality data I have, is it fragmented, where is it, is it accurate?
Absolutely.
Is that a first step that would have to be taken?
I think it's a good one. There are tools out there that do that actually now as well. So it's a recent innovation in the software industry. There are tools that are designed exactly to do that, to sort of measure your quality, to measure how good things are against your competitors, your peers. And obviously a good consultant helps there as well. It was a good idea to get a data management consultant into this.
I thought you were going to plug that in at some point, David. Okay, so with that in mind, what happens on a Monday morning? what does the head of business solutions, the CIO, the CTO, what does he or she do in terms of trying to deal with data? They accept that it's at the top of it should be at the top of the architecture, but what do they do?
Start a program to make it better, what do you mean? Yeah, I mean, that's a very key thing as well. I think the important thing about that is you have to have visionaries in the firm. You have to have people who can get buy-in at the highest level to actually, number one, get budget, because that's obviously very important. And number two, actually go to the business, go to the user, explain to them not only what's wrong with their current process, which they may or may not know so well, but also what they can do to make it better. And I think that buy-in is the key thing to getting the business on side. The biggest problem I've seen in a lot of clients I've been to is that often the process is led by IT because they want to improve things, get better technology.
Right.
That's not usually the answer. It's processes, it's the people's actual roles that matter. So you have to review everything. Everything should be up for grabs, not just data, all the systems around it as well.
So who should drive this project? Is it IT? Is it the business?
That's always the danger, isn't it? Yeah. Usually you get a combination. Quite often IT tends to win in all of those scenarios. Which is crazy because the business are the ones who are paying for it. Yeah. But the business sometimes are too busy to put the effort into new projects, so they will carry on doing BAU, missing the fact that actually their BAU could be improved. So it needs that visionary, who probably spans both actually if you can, certainly probably from the business but with an IT background perhaps, who can then push that whole vision forward.
Okay, so just one final thing. You've said that this is a fairly expensive investment that has to be made. You've said that it's a complex process.
Absolutely.
How do you prepare a business case? What are the key elements that you would look for? Because clearly nothing's going to happen until someone can quantify what the costs versus the benefits of this exercise would be.
I think that's a very good question. The key point there, I think, is understanding your existing costs, because quite often firms, it's a very common thing actually, most firms don't know the total cost of ownership of their data. They know
so they don't know what it cost them today?
They don't know today, exactly.
Right, okay.
In fact, they have no clue. I'll tell you that for a fact from many firms I've dealt with. Quite often, if you see a direct cost of data, like a Bloomberg feed and a Telecurs feed, the actual cost of that data to the firm can be 6 or 7 times that, because they manipulate that data, they move it around to different areas. And you'll often see indirect costs where, well, hard one, but indirect cost could involve something like a fine from a compliance rule. We don't want that to happen. But another indirect cost might be a fund manager or some kind of manager who's actually looking at the money side of things, and he's spending probably half his morning getting his positions right. That's a crazy cost to the business. So I think that's very important. And then it's the whole thing around tangible against intangible benefits. It's the cost against indirect costs, and come out with a business case that gives them ROI. They've got some return on investment.
So I guess that's also cash and opportunity cost as well.
Absolutely, yeah. Opportunity cost is the bigger thing. It's intangible, but it's if you don't do it, your competitors will do it. Right. So do you want to be the best?
David, great to catch up with you.
Not at all.
Thank you very much.
I'll cheer you, but it's coffee. Nice
Thanks,
to see you.
David.
Thanks very
Bye-bye.
much. Thanks. Bye.